When I looked at some of the footage, or at least the news reports coming out of China, I found it quite interesting that the athlete selected to light the Olympic cauldron, that's the cauldron that has the eternal flame of the Olympics, was a Uyghur athlete. And I thought, wow, after all these reports or, of allegations of human rights abuses, perhaps documented human rights abuses, why would China choose a Uyghur athlete? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear it from you.
Well, certainly the regime wants to suggest that there's nothing going on in the Uyghur regions and that these concentration camps are re-education facilities that the Uyghurs freely enter, whereas we know that they're covered with barbed wire, guard towers, and that the conditions inside the camps are dangerous for women. There are extensive reports, credible ones, of sexual abuse of women in the camps by Chinese men, and that they are not allowed to speak their language or practice their religion while in the camps. And parents are kept separated from their children, who are sent to orphanages where they are educated in the Chinese language and not allowed to have any contact to their indigenous culture. So, the idea that a Uyghur athlete is leading the march to light the cauldron would be particularly repugnant to the Uyghur Canadians here in Canada, who don't have contact with their families, don't know what's going on, and are having trouble sleeping at night, feeling powerless over trying to stop the genocidal policies that China is carrying out against their family members, friends, and countrymen. So, it was a really disturbing thing to see, and I'm pretty sure that Uyghur athlete was coerced into pretending that everything is just fine here, and he's proud to represent the People's Republic of China. I can't imagine that he could have been feeling any kind of clear conscience as he marched to the cauldron to light it.
Yes, and perhaps one shred of evidence towards your point there was that the athlete was never permitted, even after he competed in this field, he was never permitted to actually speak to the international media. It was simply, he was only permitted to speak through the Chinese state media. So that perhaps could give us an indication of, what kind of duress or controlled situation was going on there. I also, as a Canadian, we have so many expat Chinese, we have so many from Hong Kong. Seeing what has happened in Hong Kong in the past, 20 months or so, the suspension, the elimination of civil liberties for those in Hong Kong, and the assertion of the national law by the Chinese, do we owe it to our fellow Canadians who are of Hong Kong descent or who've come and escaped to do something? I mean, it's not like China has had this. They've been sitting quiet. Yes, there's continued human rights violations with the Uyghurs, but what happened in Hong Kong is very recent. People are continually being jailed. In addition to the two Michaels, do we not owe them something to stand up?
Yes, I think that, it gets to the point where we really have to be looking at how we engage with China. And do we allow China to continue to engage in disinformation over Canadian media about what's going on in Hong Kong? And do we allow the Chinese ambassador to be going to universities up and down Canada, universities that typically have China-related funding, making speeches defending the Chinese position, when our ambassador in Beijing would never be allowed to do the same? So I think from that point of view, Canada really should be doing more to make it clear to the Chinese regime that it's not business as usual. And if they want to sanction us economically or try and impose non-tariff barriers on our Canadian commodity exports to China, that's just a price that we will have to pay for standing up for what's right and for our liberal democratic values against the Chinese threat.